everyone, welcome to Inside the CCL, Season 3, Episode 1. So Season 3, CCL is started. The rosters have been locked in. There weren't enough changes for me to really want to do a draft show, but I'm going to do a quick recap of what ended up happening during the draft. So Caesar Salad has transitioned to being the tank player for Diamond Hands. Bad Benny was dropped. My understanding was that was a schedule issue and not necessarily that they didn't want to have Bad Benny on the team anymore. And they picked up Kelsier. So we'll have to see how that roster shapes up. Gotfilth and Valimar seem like they are doing really well together still. And then Caesar Salad is actually a surprisingly good tank player. I've been fairly impressed with Caesar Salad's tank play so far. And he was a support main, so it's a role he's transitioned to. Granite Gaming picked up X-Ray. X-Ray is a very good tank player, but consistently it seems like X-Ray is a one-season player for every team that picks him up. He probably was the best tank pickup available for Granite Gaming. It's just that it feels like X-Ray needs to be on a team where he's vibing, with the team. That doesn't seem to have happened yet. Wildheart pretty much had to rebuild their brain. You want to think about it that way. Zergling has role swapped to ranged. The question in everyone's mind was a Dark Matter Penumbra. It was Dark Matter. Penumbra doesn't hang out on the chair. Slug Hunter picked up as the offlane. Slug Hunter was the manager for Wildheart as well, but now he's been picked up as a player. Not a bad player. Not a bad offlaner necessarily. So yeah, Zergling's transitioned to flex. Mason is ranged, and they picked up Tremor. If I recall, Justin said something like, "I think there's a chance Tremor ends up being the best tank in CCL by the end of the season." So massive vote of confidence there when Justin was going over the rosters. It's just a question of who is Wildheart now. You swap out some players and a team is basically the same. Team just with a different name. You swap out someone like Justin, who has his particular ideas of how the meta should be and what heroes are viable and what comps are optimal on given maps. And Wildheart's going to be very different. Now, obviously, Wildheart looked very good this week. So far, they seem to be doing extremely well, but different team. So I think one could make the argument that Wildheart is literally the most different, the second most different team. We'll get to the most different in a second. I'll save oxygen for last. Tremor will be the most playmaking deck, maybe. We'll see. Bad Benny picked up for 30k. Nagram picked up. We actually saw Nagram play this week as a sub and not in his main role. Apparently, Nagram is a tank main. He was picked up because he was very impressive in the free agent tournament. So interested to see if that pans out. Like if they end up, because Bad Benny obviously is known for some schedule issues. If Nagram is the alt tank and he has the tutelage from someone like Bad Benny, I mean, maybe next season we end up seeing him main roster for someone. Chili Mountain picks up Smexy. Smexy, I don't know if Smexy's a side grade or an upgrade from Banana. So here's the thing. Smexy obviously has the HGC experience, but Banana was arguably the best support in the league and has been playing a lot more recently. Banana was on Oxygen in Season 1. I've worked with him very closely. I think he's an amazing support player. So is that an upgrade? Is that a side grade? Week 1, it did not look like people were on the same page as Smexy, which any new roster by default probably going to have coordination issues because people have different ideas of what's going on with the game state. So we'll see. Storm lost Queppy. Queppy is a significant loss, but they did pick up Ruzzo. I don't want to comment too much on their performance this week because they were playing with a sub. So we don't know how good their roster is going to be when we actually get to see their roster. Swapping out, IBTings is actually not a bad offlaner, but Dequaza is arguably one of the top 2 offlaners in the league. So swapping Dequaza out for someone who's good but not great, a little bit awkward. Ruzzo obviously a very very good pickup though. Simplicity is the most changed team. I don't think anyone could argue that because even though they still have Cure. Cure is the 6th man, so he's coaching. They lost their drafter, their shot caller, And Lutano is not just a shot caller for simplicity. Lutano is of the micro shot calling variety, where he tells everyone what to do all the time. So you literally only have to think about your mechanics. You don't have to think about anything else because Lutano's always telling you what to do. Lutano, gone. Hosty, gone. And with Hosty gone, Hosty played some odd heroes, right? So not only do you no longer have your shot caller and your drafter, you actually have a changed hero pool from the person in the flex role coming in. And then you pick up Mene. Mene has a very different hero pool than most players. In terms of the heroes he excels on. Mene can kind of play anything, but in terms of the heroes Mene really excels on, he has a very different hero pool. Simplicity was Lutano and Cure, right? It was Lutano, shot calling, Cure's hero pool. That was the team. And now Simplicity is Masquerade Legacy. I don't know how much input Mene is having to draft him, but like Legacy and Masquerade built this team for themselves, probably with some input for Cure. Fancy Pants, very good offlaner. So Fancy Pants was, of course, on Granite Gaming last season as an offlane. When Fancy Pants was in, Granite Gaming had an 80% win rate, I think. And when Fancy was out, because he was a sub, they had a 30% win rate. I'm not going to attribute that all to Fancy, but Fancy is a very good offlaner. I actually had a conversation with him a few months ago where he was, we were talking about his role, and he started out as a range player, and I'm like, no, you shouldn't play ranged. You're a much better offlane player, and he is. His performance on offlane is like demonstrably better than his performance on range has ever been. But they did pick up Unaverted, arguably one of the top 2 NA ranged players. Very different roster coming out of Simplicity. And then we didn't make any changes. We basically just changed who our sub was. We did try to pick up Wubby as a tank main, just because we have some scheduling issues anyway. So we thought that we could, make that work. Literally the first thing we said to Wubby when he came in is, if it ends up that you don't like playing with us, feel free to tell us, and we will trade you to someone else. We really want you to be in the league no matter what, because we have a lot of respect for you. I have a lot of respect for Wubby, of course, and he actually ended up deciding he didn't want to play in CCL at all. It was a combination of he didn't want to play on ping, and he had just moved, so he had a lot of internal stress in his life. He didn't necessarily want to take on something new. Very unfortunate. Hopefully we will see Wubby in Season 4. Maybe Auction. We'll find out. I am still with Auction for Season 3, yes. I am still the coach. So that's sort of the update. Results-wise, for Week 1, Wildheart 3-0'd Chili Mountain. Sim 3-2 Diamond Hands. That is a reverse sweep. I believe that is only the 3rd reverse sweep ever in CCL. So we're getting one early this season. 30K, 3-0's Granite Gaming, and Oxygen 3-1'd Storm. So pretty interesting results. I think this is the most games we've ever had in Week 1, because technically we had 15 games. Week 1, the first season, I believe there were 12 games, so it was all 3-0s. Which I'm not going to necessarily say the league is more competitive, but, if you're getting more games, the league might be more competitive. But it's really important to note that with everyone has made roster changes except Oxygen. So Oxygen, theoretically, Week 1 should be the strongest team. Just because we have basically the same roster, which means that anything we've practiced, anything we've refined, doesn't have to change. Nothing about our coordination has to, be worked on. We are all sort of on the same page. We're just refining, not starting from scratch. Every other team really has to build that synergy, build that consensus on how they want to play the game. And even in our series versus Storm, I think it was game 2. If you go watch BBJ's perspective on stream at the end of the game when BOE was ending, he was like, if we had just, done this, we would have been fine, and they couldn't have done anything. And everyone agreed with him at the end, but you could tell from their play that they obviously didn't think about that way during the game, and there ended up being a split in their actions. You will see more of that from other teams and less of that from Oxygen, only because we didn't change our roster. It's not like Oxygen is super special. It's just that when teams play together for a long time, they get to the point where they all understand how they want to play certain comps, or how they want to play certain maps, or how they want to play certain situations, and they don't have to talk about it. It just works. So, theoretically, Oxygen, strongest team at the start, but we'll see. how that ends up going into even week 2 or week 3, because synergy, if it's something you focus on, can develop very rapidly. The question is, will teams focus on that? So this is a clip from Cascon stream. Cascon is co-streaming. Boom. And he's gonna ask a question. This is great.
Someone go into inside the CCL channel right now. Ask 355 30k versus Granite Gaming. Game 3. Does Hunter die if Arian took over power?
Okay, so here we are. We can answer the question, which is, would Hanzo have died? The answer is yes. So basically, there's 54 bonus damage right now from the level 1 on Lion's Maw, and it did hit. So 107 plus 54 is 161. Heroic Strike baseline does 165 damage. The second proc of Heroic Strike would have done 40% more than 165. So it's 4 overkill even baseline. So very much a kill there. Auction versus Storm game 1. Why move speed on Blaze? Why move speed on Blaze at 1? So move speed on Blaze, move speed just in general is completely overpowered. It just is a very good talent. It's just very good to have move speed in general. Being over 80% health, not really that much of a restriction for Blaze. He has high self-sustain. He's ranged, technically, like ranged. So it's relatively hard for people to trade into him in the 1v1 in the off lane. So, and you activate to gain 100% attack speed, which helps you with wave clear, and then you guarantee the movement speed. So, what are the other options? Like Neural is taken primarily for the CDR. So you can get another E out sooner, you can get another Q out sooner, it helps a little bit with burst. The Unstoppable is taken mostly in the tank slot, and only if they have a lot of counterplay to E. If they have, multiple knockbacks, so you really need the Unstoppable in order not to have your E get messed with, which not really a concern for the offlaner. Also, they don't have a lot of knockbacks, it's really just your LW. Not your LW. Adrenaline Stimpack, I think, for offlaning is sort of the default for a lot of players because the move speed makes you less gankable. The attack speed helps you clear waves faster. The less time you spend in vision clearing a wave, the less in danger you are of death. So wave clear not only helps you rotate, it helps you play around vision better. Nasmus really personally prefers that talent pretty much all the time on Blaze from the offlane position. Neural is probably the best teamfight option, but... Okay, this clip just says Cascon was wrong. And I looked at the clip and I didn't see like a specific question. So we'll see. We can ask Greffer what question he thought he was asking.
But also the Emerald into Brightwing Z is less impactful if the plan is to cocoon the Z target.
I think the question is it expected that Brightwing dies here? Like, I think that's the only thing I can think of.
This cocoon is something, I don't know if you can really kill it. That's a good... I guess I'm wrong. I didn't think they could time the stuns perfectly, but sweet.
Okay, so the question was, could we time the stuns perfectly? I mean, obviously we did, so... I don't know to tell you. We timed the stuns perfectly. Easy game. Easy life. To play devil's advocate, I do think the Thrall is more useful with Sunder there. Like, I think it's realistic to just trade Gus to Earthquake, and Gus is just going to perm out template you. Thoughts? I was actually... So this ended up being a really weird game. We had Cassia without a cleanse support, which is always questionable. We ended up with Thrall into Johanna. This was Johanna in the 4-5, if I believe, and Thrall was picked in the 3-4. So not only is it Thrall, but it's into the new double blind. And in general, I just like Sunder better. Earthquake... Here's the thing about competitive. If you have some kind of like wombo combo based off of Earthquake where the slow isn't enabling something and they have like limited mobility, so the slow is not something they can blink out of or vault out of or barrel roll out of or falling sword out of or whatever, or just D, then that's great. I'm sure everyone has seen the Earthquake APOC combo where Thrall Earthquakes and then Diablo immediately APOCs if you have like a Kael'thas. Kael'thas literally with the slow cannot get out in time. Sure, enabling Phoenix Ult. Earthquake is not, in my opinion, not something you pick independently unless you're picking it for the 20, but still. So Sunder might have been a little bit better, but Sunder, into critical misbuild may not be great either unless you manage to Sunder or somehow isolate the Brightwing and kill someone else. So, is Storm too aggressive of a team? I mean, that's a question. Storm is a very aggressive team. They, to some degree, pride themselves on the fact that they are an aggressive team. So, are they too aggressive? I mean, they did very well last season, despite their level of aggression. Not as Storm, but Lauber did very well in Season 1, but basically the same playstyle. I think that people... there's something fundamental about PvP games that people don't appreciate, which is that you have to interact with the other team in order to win. Like, you can't win the game if you don't at any point interact with the other team. Like, and the extreme example of that is, of course, you need to stay in spawn, you interact with the team, and they'll eventually win the game because you're just doing nothing. You have to see people. You have to, tanks play hide and seek. Just because a tank gets seen and immediately backs up doesn't mean that it was bad that they were there in the first place. They got vision. They traded. Oh yeah, you're there. I'm here. Reset. I'm gonna go hide again. I'm gonna play seek again. Maybe you hide. Doesn't matter. There's an interaction going on. One of the things that was really a signature of the Koreans is that they could play on the very edges of their range and make it so that people couldn't stand places. One of the things that Mopsio once said was that the first time he played against Gen G, Reset showed him his place. He was like, no, you're not allowed to stand there. Nope, you're not allowed to stand there. Nope, you're not allowed to stand there. And it wasn't that he was killing him, it's that he was bullying him. He was pushing him away from places he wanted to be. And aggression is just one way of forcing interaction, right? So once the battle has been joined, so to speak, it comes down to mechanics. And there's examples from other MOBAs, of course. Everyone's heard stories of Faker going in with like 1 health and 1v5ing just by dodging every single skill shot that was thrown at him, right? So aggression is one way of forcing interaction with the enemy team, and as long as you're winning those interactions, there's nothing wrong with being aggressive. There are other ways of forcing interaction with the other team, but you have to, in some level, interact with the other team. And in a team-based game, you ideally want to do that together, which goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the synergy. I would have preferred Sunder here, though. I do think that's a very hard thrall game, no matter what you pick. That I don't think talents were really the issue. I think that was just a fundamental draft issue. Misclick Arrow seems like Wall Strike was the play. I agree that Wall Strike was better here. I think Arrow wasn't a misclick. They decided partway through the game that the May engage was not reliable enough into the Anub, so they needed a supplementary engage, and Arrow was the only supplementary engage available. What was the thought process behind the thrall pick? I have no comment. But Arrow ended up working. I mean, the game ended up working out. I mean, you guys haven't seen the clip. This is how the game ended. Once again from Cask on stream, we get to see Cascon's reaction to this guest.
But the answer is probably no. Like, would
I'd like to point out
have done 5k damage?
Oh, look at that guest. That's a 4-man ISO off of a 4-man wind tunnel. Auction is still doing the team-wide chuckling system, yes. And then Cascon flames the ice wall right here, but I don't think he accounted for the fact that Red upgraded ice wall, so this is for the shatter.
What is the ice wall? Never mind, take it back. Ice wall's OP. Who was it? Who was a Dreaded Gouter? Who was doubting Dreaded? Who? Tell me now, who was doubting Dreaded?
Best guess of CCL so far? CCL Season 3? Yeah, that was not the easiest game. I went back and watched it, and all I did was flame the storm for 4-man walking into choke. I mean, they thought they had the Mankill. What are you gonna do? Does Seeker Li Ming win Storm the Last Immortal race? Probably not. So Seeker Li Ming is obviously more race. It's a specialized build. It's pretty much only good for racing and arguably for just poking. You don't really have the finishing power that you would have without Calamity. But Li Ming didn't get to throw that many missiles, and a lot of the missiles she did get to throw were interrupted by bodies, which means that obviously Seeker would not have procced on the Immortal, since 3 missiles were not always hitting it. Game 3 BOE. Gal and I had doubts about W build to Haka and going E16 without E4. What do you think was the best Haka build this game? So the main thing about W4 is that it increases the W duration by half a second. That actually does change the breakpoints for wave clear. I think it's 2 autos per minion plus a W will clear a wave at some point. And so W1 is always sort of something you can pick as an offlane. Same thing going back to the same Blaze things, where wave clear as the offlane not only gives you more wave clear, but it gives you less time spent in vision. always relevant. So W build into Ming Tracer, obviously very good. A lot of their damage is spell damage, spell armor, obviously going to be very good here. And E16 without E4. E16 is in the same position it's always been, which is that it prevents you from dying to dive. Right? You have baseline movement speed on your E, but it's only 50% now. Like, you can still go Tunneling Claws. A lot of people have been going the stealth talent at 4 for the combination of the knockback, which is also a stun, the slow, but arguably for something like W build where you're getting the constant spell armor from the CDR, something like Hero Stalker is actually better because you're also getting more drains. So this is, with the exception of maybe taking adaptation instead of isolation, this is the safest possible build, and your goal is just to not die, which let's see how that worked out. I mean, he died once. Was there a better possible build this game? Race car is always something that's very, very tempting on BOE because there's so many bushes. We did run mouth down a fair amount. The problem with any of the stacking level ones is BOE. It's going to stack a little bit slower, so it's going to be a little bit more difficult, and you won't have the change in the breakpoints. It's very difficult to do what we did, which is take a scaling comp on BOE. Triple global is obviously always going to be a scaling comp. And we did manage to scale, but we were on the back foot for a good portion of the game. So, is there and picking a build on Dahaka that is immediately online and doesn't need to stack, maybe is the reason we managed to hold on to the game and scale. So, given how the game went, I don't think there is a better build, but maybe Stalker was a better build. Maybe we would have gotten picks with the move speed. Would run comp again? Oh yeah, of course. It's a good comp. Madara did hit a lot of scatters that game, especially post 16 with the Giant Slayer. Why Trader King at 20 over rewinding game 2? I mean, I think that the clips we had of Red dying sort of speak for themselves. That's all that matters to me. I can check out now. Unlucky. Like, summary. 3 deaths. 3 deaths is a lot for an Anubrak, by the way, who has move speed on 4, he has the spell armor, he has a lot of anti-burst tools, he has the ability to E out and has that unstoppable. Basically, whenever a comp can kill you, or can kill you when you go in, you kind of need Trader King. How many CCL players are there? All right, so this is a funny story. During HGC, when I did HGC Rundown, I had like 80-ish viewers on average. 8 to 16 of them were HGC players on average. Like 10 to 20% of my audience was actually people I was talking about. This is funny. Why Crash here? It's intended to be a poke comp. The problem with Crash is that it was massively over nerfed, and I don't know if it's ever really recovered. But it's more poke is really what it comes down to. Poke into Brightwing though. Sometimes you have ideas and you're like, yeah, that makes sense, and maybe that would make sense into a different comp, but I don't think it makes sense into that comp. In fairness, but we knew the Thrall was going to struggle. So we tried to mitigate it through talents as best we could. Auction versus Storm game 1. Yeah, you don't want to look at a draft and be like, it didn't work, therefore it won't work. Generally speaking, every single draft you ever see a competitive team play, they have practiced it in scrims and won with it. There's an example I always like to use from Tempo Storm. Tempo Storm way back in the day drafted a Tomb comp that was so strong, they'd won with it like 8 times in scrims, that the enemy team had literally never hit 20. It was that good. And they took it to an international LAN event, and they were winning the whole game, but they couldn't close out the game versus a better team. They couldn't close it out. The team did get 20, and then the comp that Tempo drafted was so weak at 20 that they just lost. Because their comp was all, early tempo game focused. From like 1 to 16, it was extremely strong. But their 20 spikes were really poor. And the other team had better 20 spikes, so they ended up winning the 20 team fight. And people flamed Tempo like endlessly for that comp. It was 8-0 in scrims. It had literally never lost. And they struggled with it at 20 because they'd literally never gotten to 20 with it or the enemy team had never gotten a 20. They'd never been in a 20 versus 20 situation in 8 games. So they didn't play it perfectly, and it was a little bit weaker in the 20 versus 20 situation. But they didn't, you can't flame a team for that. I'm not saying that comp is good now. I'm just saying that you can't necessarily flame a comp because people don't draft things. I'm thinking of the Goku Ragfort, and that was a flank. But it was a very similar situation, and that was flanking through. So it's a little bit different. So this is essentially a Stukov question. I sometimes see people take the healing and sometimes the armor at 4. Is armor the choice here due to higher burst versus sustained damage? So it's physical armor. It's really worth noting that it's physical armor. Personally, I actually am not a huge fan of Vigorous Reuptake without Reactive, because Vigorous Reactive allows you to do Vigorous Reuptake plus Pox Populi, and then you can double D, and you will get the 3 or more healing through, and twice. And it's literally a team-wide Ancestral. It heals for just as much Ancestral healing, but it can heal on all 5 of your teammates. It's actually kind of insane. Nova does a lot of auto damage, especially if she goes 1 in the chamber. I'm actually a little bit surprised this isn't 1 in the chamber. And obviously, Overwhelming Affliction. This is auto build still, right? So she's gonna have Remorseless ticking. She's gonna get more auto damage in. We even have Skullcracker, right? I actually think that armor was better this game for E-build specifically, which is what we went. But you really have to think about all the considerations for the talents. We also have a poke comp. I will say that this game, Vigorous Reuptake really pushed healing in situations where they were all-inning and trying to burst through someone. But I think the armor also would have helped with that, despite the nerf. Yeah, this is the game that had the Imperious Ult Escape move on the final fight, and that is correct. CDR for 4. CDR at 4 is something that really only feels viable in double support. I don't like bribe on this Nova game, 3-inching block. More. Yeah, that never happened this game, but there's a tech specifically for Nova where if any impact skill shot, you can actually block it with Nova Clone. There are players who very consistently can do that. For instance, Faye back in the day had a game where she blocked every single Stitches hook that came at her with Wisp, literally 100% of them. So there are players who can do that. You blocked it once. Once is not good enough. If I see you block something once, I'm gonna assume it's an accident. I'm not gonna assume you did that on purpose. Do you need to bribe turret though? I mean, I guess you are limited on wave clear, so getting the turret quickly is going to be a little bit questionable. Empowered turrets really do a lot when you're forced to fight over the point. The problem is that Volskaya is currently not in a position where getting the Protector matters. You cannot force a fight over the point, because the enemy team can just be like, Protector, and just walk away. It does spawn 2 times as fast as Nova Bribe, that is true. But then Nova has to be following around your wave clear hero and standing there so that she's there for the wave clear to get the bribe, right? Can you actually even get bribes that quickly? Let's think about this. Every enemy minion skilled in Nova grant a stack of bribe. 25 stacks, that's 1. So you're getting 28 stacks a minute. I mean, technically, if Nova's there for every wave, it's fine. But we played it once in scrims and we had a massive XP lead just from Mercs. I believe that. But if the idea is to get ahead in experience, then why'd you go for the camp invade? Because the camp invade was very risky, right? If you're scaling, you don't want to be aggressive, especially if you're getting ahead in experience. You're usually playing first to 10, and then you use 10. Well, we want turrets. In scrim, we won their turret. That's fair. I mean, technically, you did get it. We just killed you. Oh, I see. We're asking if this was a misclick. Yeah, this was a misclick. So you can make the argument that taking this E wasn't wrong.
Red one on route, sir.
So Sylvanas E's out, and bear in mind that this is not Sylvanas reset build. So this is 1 E, and I think the E here is trying to find the Maev. So I don't necessarily think this is a bad E.
He just reactivates the E
per se.
It was a misclick.
But then
Look.
Bolt fails to go over the
Bolt.
wall.
So The bolt from Madara is because he realized he accidentally clicked his E, so he wants to bolt back over the wall. He misses the bolt over the wall.
That's unfortunate. And then the Dahaka carries the game by interrupting the Brightwing Z, because 100% that Brightwing Z would have gone off if Dahaka hadn't gone to interrupt it. And if the Brightwing Z goes off, like, Madara lives, and they're all very, very low with him alive, that's a problem. You're gonna hate to hear it, but the bolt wasn't even over the wall. Unlucky. Oh my god, the bolt should have been over the wall. Here, guys, here's a literal pro tip. If you have an ability that can go over walls and you're running away, use the ability to go over a wall. Even if you have to walk like 2 steps first, just try to go over walls. Trust me. Just trust me. I was trying to... Oh, camera lock fucked me. Oh my god. Oh no. No. It's not very often that camera lock actually punishes you. I mean, camera lock screws everyone some of the time it plays it, but in fairness, non-camera lock screws people sometimes too. Like, 100% consistency is very difficult. Like, even basic consistency on every hero. After watching Game 1 and Game 2 of 30k versus Granite, how much of 30k's victory came from throws by Granite? So I wanna put this out there. This is the only Game 1 is the only game where I think Granite won the draft, but not having a cleanse support for Tyrael to guarantee the Sanct off means the Tyrael has to play really well. The Sancts have to be proactive, because any reactive Sanct is going to be canceled by Grenade, by Poly, by Urel, like W. Like half a second for a pro player is an eternity to react and be like, So they have to proactively go in with Sanct. And I don't think that happened literally at all this game. Like, not once. They did not proactively go in with Sanct. So, I think Granite Gaming lost the rest of the drafts, and I don't think that they played this draft well enough. Like, I don't think they can, as a team, I don't think they can execute the Tyrael Sanct. And it's not that uncommon to have that problem. The Ishbu was at one point, he was an HCC tank on HHE, and he was trying to learn Tyrael, and he was so frustrated with Tyrael. And he tweeted this story like a while ago. Is half a second plus ping still an eternity? Yes. The average human reaction time is like 0.28. Most pro players are significantly faster than that, especially since really good players go off audio cues, and you actually react faster to audio cues than you do to visual stimulus. So it's a very long time. Ishbu. So Ishbu finally one day was just like, screw it. I'm going on the Stukov in 2 seconds. I'm going to sword in and Sanct. Everyone follow me. And he just did it, and the Stukov died, and he was like, I get it. You got to go in on someone who lacks mobility and just Sanct, and then everyone comes into the Sanct and like goes on that person. Proactive or proactive Sancts are all about the all-in. You have to just go on someone, and the timing has to be crisp, and everyone has to follow up. You should literally be, in a lot of cases, running at the target before the Tyrael even swords in. And you have to play around vision for that to work. And that didn't happen this game. And I don't think reactively sanking with Tyrael without a cleanse is gonna work. I can imagine that BBJ is sitting there saying, I've been telling you this for months. I think that actually did happen. So, but I think they lost the rest of their drafts. So I don't think 30k won because Granite threw. I think 30k won because 30k just played better than Granite Gaming. Even in the game where arguably Granite Gaming had a better draft, they couldn't execute their draft. 30k could execute their draft. Thoughts on Vala priority and level 1 AA talent? I'm a little bit surprised by the Vala priority. Vala seems fine to me. Like, she doesn't seem bad. I don't know if she's first pickable, but people are first picking her. And I think she even won, she won some of the games she was first picked, right? So I don't love the AA at 1 talent, but the other two, have been nerfed. And Q is very much a burst thing, whereas if people want the option to like hyper carry Vala, you can't really go Q build. It's not really how that's going to work. So is W build better? I don't know. I remember there was a Vola player telling me that taking the Gambit talent and dying twice on purpose felt really good because it gave you the right amount of attack speed, and then you could stack up because you will clip your autos. The attack speed is that fast with the level 1 talent at full stacks and 0 deaths. So I'm not sure. That's going to require more stats. In particular, it's going to require Spazzo posting his stats to the Storm spreadsheet, so I know exactly how much damage the autos are adding, and it may require some manual review. But also, I think a lot of range players like the talent because it feels really good to have really fast attack speed. It just feels good to attack fast when you're a range player, and to stack constantly. You really feel like you're having an impact in the game, and you like get a tangible feedback from the game on your progress. Does that make it the best talent? Usually not, but sometimes just feeling that a talent is good can keep you focused and help you play better. Rich used to speculate that the only reason Nazebo had a good win rate on ladder was because Nazebo's trait tricks people into playing correctly by clearing waves. The E4 also feels very good. Just look at that. You can look at the whole build. You can't W build without W4, in my opinion. That's an argument. So you're saying the entire synergy of the build. You also, I mean, you're going to get a little bit more value potentially out of Manticore. You have the extra safety from Farflight. This is Death Dealer. Increases Vault's basic attack damage. There was a Korean player at one point who used to be so good at Death Dealer, he would reset it 7 times per wave, and he would just auto down the wave. No, he wasn't a professional player. He was a Vala one trick. He had an 80% win rate on Vala in GM Korean ladder, and a 0% win rate on every other hero. He was very good at Vala, and he could do every build Vala had. And like he did some bullshit with Vala that no one else was doing on ladder, but he couldn't play anything else. It was really funny. Any standout performances in the tank role to review/learn from? See, the thing about tanking is that it requires really good coordination with your team. So week 1, I would not look at anyone because, except for Oxygen, everyone has changed up their roster, and so that synergy just isn't there yet. There were tons of every team had a whiffed engage. Even Oxygen actually had 1 or 2 whiffed engages where the team like visually was in range, but then didn't follow up. So clearly there was a comms issue. So yeah, wait for week 2 or 3. Wait for week 2 or 3 before you start trying to learn things by watching these tanking replays, unless it's like basic stuff, like just when do you push your buttons on the hero. But nothing really stand out week 1 in that regard. What in God's name is with all these mouse only going Ysera's and CCL? Did Dark Matter spill water on the W keys? They didn't all, did they? Oh, they all going Ysera's. So here's the thing about Ysera's. You should never be below 75% health. So this should be up 100% of the time unless you're getting focused. Which, if you're getting focused, just stay out of vision. Jesus Christ, stop it. What Ysera's does is it's PvE healing. The only thing Ysera's gift is better at than the other talents at the tier is PvE healing. That's it. Nothing else. It's literally worse than the other two at any form of PvP. But sometimes you're like on Cursed Hollow and you're doing boss and there's a chance they invade. It's better to start a fight at full health than potentially have more healing. If you need PvE healing for some reason, then you go Ysera's gift. If you are planning to win via team fights, then don't go Ysera's gift. The other 2 talents are just exceptionally better in PvE scenarios. So 16. Nature's Balance increases Moonfire's area by 25% and regoes duration by 30 seconds. You're more likely to have your Qs be up on people, which is always plus. And Moonfire's area by 25%. If Moonfire hits an extra hero because of the increased area, you've done like 15 seconds of Ysera's gift healing. I think I'm exaggerating a little bit, but the math is very close to that. And then Moonlit Harmony is massive burst. If you intentionally try to hit, 2 people and you count as your own ally, by the way. So if you have Rejuvenation running, so you have even 1 Q up, technically you have 2 Qs up all the time. So this is always 30% and it can get up to 75% realistically. If you have Rejuvenation. If you don't have Rejuvenation, it will never be that high. So this essentially has the potential to nearly double your throughput. And if you do hit more than 1 person. So it's Malph's best possible burst heal option. So do you need burst healing? It's about 50%. Yeah, so if you hit one extra person, it's about 50% of Ysera's over a given time period. But you should be trying to hit multiple people with your Ws. That's one thing that only one Malf in the world ever did. In HGC, there was exactly one Malf player who consistently tried to always hit 2-man Ws, even if it meant holding his W for a second. It was Blue Beetle. So Blue Beetle would see like a tank here and 2 people over here, and the tank was going on the target. Most Malf players in HGC would W the tank. Blue Beetle would walk 2 steps and W the 2 people over here. And he literally had double the average healing on a per game basis of any other Malf. And that was it. That was the only thing he did differently. It was just that one thing. So having that increased area, but then having the increased throughput, it's just like... And currently 0 CCL Malfs do that, by the way. Literally none of them. They don't prio the clump, they prio the focus target. Or they prio the closest thing when someone's getting gone on, even if there's a 2-person clump focusing the focus target right over there. And people clump. So, Malf is hard, okay. Malf is a very difficult healer. Malf is arguably the most difficult healer. There's definitely a lack of some high-tech Malf play. Let's put it that way. Also, the Q uptime for most CCL Malfs is very poor. And Q prioritization is usually very poor as well. Because you want to have high Q uptime, but you also want to have Q on the right targets at the right times based on what the game state is. So for instance, if you know your tank is going in, you want to prio Q on them. But if you know your diver is going to go flank around from the side, you need to refresh their Q before they leave, because then they're not going to have Q when they get there. Like, you need to be thinking about that kind of thing constantly. There have actually been many lost CCL games because the Malf Q'd the wrong person, and then the person that needed the Q didn't have it when they went and did something else. Why did Granite pick Zeratul on towers versus 30k? Why not? I have no idea. Yeah, they picked Zeratul into Brightwing. They picked Zeratul into Varian. And there's no one fragile on this team. Like, normally you see a Zeratul and you're like, there's their VP combo or there's someone really, really fragile. But there's no great VP combo here, really. And no one on this team up to this point is fragile. The Jaina ended up being fragile. Like, the Jaina ended up being a fragile pick. I don't understand the Zeratul pick. It doesn't make any sense to me. Thank you guys for watching. I'll try to do more HOTS content now that the season has started up. Remember, this is a stream where we never lose. We always win, or we learn something. Learning is always a win. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the support. It's always nice to have the high-end players in here validating the fact that I know what I'm talking about, so I appreciate it. And have a good night, everyone.